Hello, my name's Abbie Jones and I am a PhD student starting the third year of my PhD at the University of Bath in the UK. My PhD looks at the social developmental challenges associated with adolescent chronic pain. I'll be doing various videos and blog posts that cover all sorts of different aspects of PhD life. This video and my first blog post are just generally ones that will introduce me and what I'm doing and how I got here. So my route to starting my PhD was slightly unusual. It sort of came out of a colleague who knew somebody who was looking for a student to put on their grant application. She put us in touch and we got on really well, and then we got the funding and I started the PhD. It's quite unusual for that to happen, so I'm just aware that my experience is quite unusual, but it really did show me the value of networking and building up professional networks and making those links, because you never know where they might lead. As I said, I'm 33 years old, so I started my PhD perhaps a little later than most people. At the start I did notice that I was a bit older than most people, but actually it's not been a problem, and I'm certainly not the oldest person that I know doing a PhD, and I would say it's never too late to do a PhD, and if you're worried about that, just go for it. So my PhD is in psychology, specifically sort of health psychology, and I'm looking at the social developmental challenges faced by adolescents who have chronic pain. So I'm looking at a range of chronic pain conditions, and some which sort of don't have a formal diagnosis. Also looking at an age range of sort of 11 to 25, so quite a wide age range of adolescents. And the social developmental challenges I'm looking at specifically are identity, autonomy and peer relationships. I will cover some areas to do with psychology, but just say that my experience of my PhD is very much based in the UK and in psychology. So although hopefully a lot of what I'll talk about will be very relevant to lots of different people, some of it might be sort of more specific to that range of people. One thing that I'm really keen to talk about is how difficult a PhD is. Now, I absolutely love my PhD, but it is hard, and there are some days where I have thought about, is this the right thing? But ultimately, I really love it, and I really actually enjoy the challenge. I think there's an interesting sort of debate that goes on about how difficult a PhD is or how difficult it should be. And the best advice that I've got is that a PhD is hard. It wouldn't be worth anything if it was easy, because everybody would have them. Part of the reason it's really worthwhile doing is because it is hard and it's quite unusual, and it shows a sort of level of work that is perhaps hard and unusual to have. However, you shouldn't need to sacrifice your mental health, and it doesn't need to be so hard that actually it ends up with you suffering and being really detrimental to your health. So there's a balance there. I think you need to accept that yes, it will be hard work, and it may well be, like for me, the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. But at the same time, overall, I'm happy, I'm healthy, and it doesn't get in the way of me having a happy and healthy life. It adds to it. If you are really struggling with your mental health, please do get help. PhD students are a group that have a particularly high risk of mental health, and I think it's really important that we talk about these issues and that we don't ignore them, but equally we don't sort of normalise them to the point where actually, if you're doing a PhD, then yes, you should basically be on the verge of having a breakdown the whole time. That is not the case. It's very common to have mental health problems during a PhD, but it's not suffering is not a required part of the process. So please do get support, and if actually the PhD is really interfering with your mental health, I think you need to think about whether you need to take a break and whether now's the right time to be doing it. I don't want to put people off doing a PhD, because like I say, I absolutely love it, and certainly suffering for your PhD is not a requirement, and there are definitely things that you can do to try and make sure that your mental health is stable during your PhD, and I will talk about that in future videos and blog posts. But just to say, having a good support network and getting a really good supervisor, like my top tips that, like I say, I will talk about in future posts. So that's a general introduction to me and who I am and what I'm doing. My next couple of posts will be about my first year ups and downs and my second year ups and downs, and kind of how I've got to where I am at the start of my third year. I'll also be talking about things like my top tips for PhDs, so getting a PhD, doing a PhD, things to think about, money issues, all of those kinds of things. So you can also follow me on Twitter. I'm at Abbie Jones 86. That's at ABBIEJONES 86, and I tweet about all sorts of different things to do with PhD life. So follow me on there and keep posted for my next videos and blog posts. Thanks, bye.